Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left.
Whiskey Congress is back in session. We're doing the quarantine thing, and I'm hobbled, so if you hear my chair wobbling back and forth, I apologize, but I'm fighting through it. Steven, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's funny, you hurt your hamstring, and I had tweaked mine earlier in the week on my treadmill, and, I was just going through a protocol to get it back right, and I'm right where I want to be. And then you called me yesterday in agonizing pain. I felt bad for you because I've been there, like not this time, but
it was it was bad.
Yeah.
So I would be showing off the bottle of whiskey you bought me for my birthday, but I did crack it open on my birthday. So thank you again for the bottle of Booker's.
You didn't finish it, did you?
No. Geez.
Oh, okay. My God.
No, I actually when you bought me that, I had like one drink worth of my previous bottle, which I finished that, but I've got. Yeah, I've taken like 2 drinks out of this thing. I definitely nursed it with the Booker's because you can get in trouble with that. This one came in at 126 proof, I think 126.4 proof. So
it's strong. I mean, the amazing thing about Booker's is even at that high proof, that high ABV, like the flavor on it is just so good. Like the flavor still comes through. Absolutely. You get just the flavor of the wood, and you get some fruit and smoke and it's amazing. I mean, it's not overly sweet, but it sits on your tongue, and there's hardly any burn. Now, you drink enough bourbon, and I think you get accustomed to that. So if you gave it to a person who doesn't drink it all, it might set their whole world on fire.
I've gotten people to sniff my glass of Booker's and had them like recoil because it was burning their nostrils.
Yeah. So, I guess that's something you develop over time. But Booker's is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm glad you're enjoying. So
thank you again. All right. So we touched on the Biden allegations.
That also your birthday marks the fact that now you are back to a full 10 years older than me.
Thank you.
Only until September, though.
I'll be marking that date. Believe me. Yeah. Anyway, so the Biden allegations have gotten a lot of ramp up, and Twitter's going nuts with this stuff. Now, I actually tweeted out on my Jim at Whiskey Congress Twitter an article in USA Today that spelled out the details of the allegations, and it's worth reading. I tweeted it out on the 30th of April. I think I sent it to you.
I read it.
I knew you read it. I didn't know if I sent it or not.
Yeah, I saw it. I read it. So, the tough part about this, strategically and politically, is that Democrats really went after Kavanaugh over Blasey Ford, and they really wanted. They were out for blood with him and the Supreme Court nomination. And during that time, I had a couple different thoughts. I thought that Kavanaugh really approached it the wrong way. I thought that, there was an easy path for him to take that could have kind of pushed it all under the rug and we could have moved on. But he chose to scream about liking beer and, being adamant in his stance. Which I thought was a mistake, but also I thought it was a mistake the way that the Democrats really went after him, attacked him, made it really about it honestly felt like that it was less about the actual incident that may or may not have occurred, and it was just political. Right. I mean, like it was hard to.
Oh yeah, it was. We're pissed that we're not going to get our Supreme Court nominee. We didn't get our chance, and we're going to dig in. And I said at the time, in fact, I wrote an article about it on our website. There's one big difference here. Well, there's a couple big differences. One of them, what Kavanaugh was accused of, happened when he was allegedly in high school, and Joe Biden was a U.S. senator. So I think expecting different levels of decorum, if that's not strong enough a word.
Yeah, you still have a giant time gap, right?
Yep. Oh, I agree.
You have no witnesses. You have very little ability to corroborate. There's fluctuations in there's changes in her story. Who she told, and when you kind of break down who she told what, there's some inconsistencies there. And so looking at this, you want to say that you want to believe all women, but I think that you have to be objective, and we can't say that we believe every single allegation every time it's laid out there, because we have enough of body of work to know that not every allegation is true.
Right.
And the other issue that you have is that if with no proof and no evidence, right, other than the limited that we have in these sort of situations, we really need to figure out what the best way to move forward is. Is it, well, it sounds credible enough, so we have to believe her, therefore, we need to eviscerate the person who's been accused, and that's just the standard going forward? Or do we have to take a more nuanced approach and say, without any sort of, without enough substantial proof, there's always going to be a question, there's always going to be an asterisk, and is it one of those things that we have to say we have to let people decide? And I think it's more the second, because while I believe that something happened to alienate this woman, but I don't know if it's what she's saying happened, right? And there's enough for us to say, I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, so another major difference between Kavanaugh and Biden is Kavanaugh was really in the spotlight for the first time in his career when those allegations came out. Whereas Biden had been a senator, a vice president, had been vetted as vice president. In fact, it was David Axelrod said that in the vetting process, they didn't come across Tara Reade's name even.
Well, which is all fine, but I want to be careful just using Kavanaugh as an example and comparing every aspect of those two things.
Right? Those are the two big ones I wanted to hit.
I understood, but and a lot of people are doing that. And I even started off by saying, and I just thought that I get that there's differences, and I understand that they're not the same, and the two people are different. But at the same time, you have to take each incident and look at it for what it is on its just individually.
Correct.
So you got to be careful, just constantly going back to the Kavanaugh comparison. My only thing is that Democrats, you got to be careful with that situation back then, because at some point in time the tables are going to be turned, right? I mean, everybody knew it. We didn't know who it was going to be. We didn't know what the situation was going to be, whether it was another Supreme Court justice or a presidential candidate or whatever it might be. But you knew that the GOP was going to find a way to turn the tables back on to Democrats with a sexual assault sort of situation, and here we are.
Yep. And all right. So one thing that is undeniable, I think we can say has been verified as true, is that Joe Biden has a history of, the word creepy gets used a lot, and I don't think it's an unfair word, creepy ways of touching people. I mean,
yeah,
he's just a touchy guy, and I don't understand the whole sniffing hair thing, but apparently there's multiple proven videos of it.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I brought it up to you over a year ago.
Yeah, we did. I know.
I know. And said it was I thought it was problematic, so there's a number of issues here. What do Democrats do? Because you have the Bernie crowd who's saying, get rid of Biden and let's just go back to Bernie. And that's more than being butthurt and trying to, force their candidate in, they couldn't get him in with votes. So they're saying, all right, well, he's the next best thing and there's no rape allegations against him. So put him in there because we said so. That's kind of their way of doing everything. And I don't think that that's going to work. But the other issue that you have is that you've got Democrats and whether it's Hillary Clinton or anyone else that's just supporting Biden, they're throwing out a number of different things. One, they're saying, all right, well, he won the most votes during the primary process. The most delegates and the most votes during the primary process. So we can't undo the people's will, so to speak. There are also, questions, well, do we believe Tara Reade? And then there's also the, the aspect of they're just completely kind of, like, some are just ignoring it, right? They're just saying, I support Joe Biden, right? I mean, and they're not even touching any of this, right? And so they're kind of addressing it in multiple different ways. And I can't tell you what the right thing to do is. Like, I don't think Joe Biden's a great candidate, but at the same time, I don't know how I feel about forcing him out and bringing Bernie in. And then you also just have the fact that I'm not even sure how this like, once you get on the main stage, when it's Biden and Trump, like, is Trump really going to go after Biden on sexual assault allegations? Like, what footing would Trump have to stand on?
He went after Bill Clinton when he ran against Hillary.
Right. And I mean, we talked about that. I mean, it was a turning point really it was a turning point during that, campaign and election, because it really caught a lot of people off guard, and Hillary didn't fight back, right? Like, she just didn't punch back. Right. She took this, I'm going to take the high road, and I'm just going to sit back, and I'm going to cruise on in. And again, just a lot of miscalculations by her campaign and her team on how to handle Donald Trump. Donald Trump basically came in like a southpaw fighter, fighting someone who had never fought a lefty before. And
good analogy.
and Hillary definitely lost that fight. Now we understand Donald Trump more, but the thing is that his base is very entrenched, right, in the idea of what Trump represents. They don't care about Trump as an individual. They don't care about his history. They don't care about the bankruptcies. They don't care about the
grab him by the pussy.
They don't care about the grab him by the pussy, shooting somebody in the middle of the street. They don't care about the affairs. They don't care about Stormy Daniels. They don't care about any of it. They don't care about his ties to Russian money. They don't care about his ties to Chinese money. Money that he owes the Chinese banks, money that he owes Russian oligarchs. They don't care about any of it, right? The only thing they care about is what Trump represents, right? Trump represents, for some reason, they think that he represents the common man. They think that he is all for the hard worker, in that he's doing everything he can for the white middle class, because the white middle class has been set aside, abused, denied, and discriminated against over the last 30 years, while these uppity black people and the gays and everybody else has had their comeuppance. And now it's time for the middle class white people to be back on top. That's what Trump represents to his supporters. And so the rest of his shtick doesn't matter, right? Like they embrace all of it as, as an idea, which at this point, even if Trump were to go away, right, and whoever, like if something happened to Trump, and I'm not saying that it would, but if he were to die, have a heart attack or something along those lines, become incapacitated, and Pence stepped in, like, nothing would change, right? I mean, like, how Pence operates would obviously be different, but he's going to still operate in the same setup that Trump had put out there. So his base and Trump's followers are just going to fall right in line. Now he's basically created a plug-and-play system of this is the new, this is the new conservative GOP Republican Party.
The difference is Pence isn't a firebrand. So Pence isn't going to go to rallies and fire up the crowd the way Trump will with his.
Says who? I mean, he may not. He's not going to go and do a stand-up bit like Trump does at every rally, but like whoever
people will still be wearing the MAGA hats and
yeah. I mean,
that
he's still going to go. He's still going to have rallies. He would still go. I guarantee you, they would say, "Listen, this is what worked, and we're just going to do it. You don't necessarily need to beat Trump. You can't replace him, but." You still need to do the things that he did to make sure that the base knows who and what we are, and that we haven't changed, right? So, I mean, and what I mean is that you can pull Trump out, put in Pence or whoever you want, and as long as they keep the message going, they may do it in a different style. His base isn't going to shift.
That's been proven. They'll just dig in and dig in now.
Right, and so that's what Biden is up against. And so what Democrats are going to have to reconcile, which a lot of them are having a hard time, is do you look at the Tara Reade situation, recognize that there's not enough information really. Well, the people, the progressives that are pushing back, at some point in time, you have to realize that Bernie's not going to get swapped in for Biden. It's just not going to happen. So is your hate for Trump enough to where you can hold your nose and vote for Biden, or is this just the last straw, and do you just stay home? That's really what this comes down to.
And there will be a lot of people in the latter camp. One thing I got to say about this, though, is I think that they had an absolutely legitimate beef with the 2016 campaign, because the superdelegates were completely in the bag for Hillary, and they basically ran a head-to-head campaign, two people, and if it weren't for superdelegates, it would have been a very different race. This time around, the Biden lead occurred with multiple people in the race, and yeah, some of them dropped out because they didn't see a path forward, but there were no superdelegates. They didn't get screwed this time. It's just that when it came down to two people, more people chose Biden than Bernie, period.
Yeah, I mean, and people will say, well, the DNC pressured Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg and those people to drop out of the race.
Okay.
And I mean, they did, but that didn't mean that they had to, right?
It didn't mean that they had to,
right?
And you've said this 100 times. I've said it maybe 10. If the Bernie people would get out and vote in the numbers that it would take to sway the Democratic Party to believe that was the way to go to win back the White House, they would do it. But that crowd tends to sulk and mope and doesn't get out there.
Right. They
figure it out.
And their issue is, they've mastered social media, right? They've organized in great numbers in social media, and they've actually organized in really good numbers for Bernie, making calls and getting, grassroots donations and raising a lot of money for him. But it's still not translating to votes. Yeah, I mean, they love to throw out how many phone calls they made and how much money they raised, but it doesn't translate to votes in the polls. And then they'll go to the excuse, well, apparently a majority of the people who would vote for Bernie can't vote because, getting off work to vote on a Tuesday sometime between 8 in the and 6 at night is impossible. Like that is literally what they're telling you. They're just saying, well,
I've heard that argument a bunch of times, and it's
right.
A bullshit
I mean,
argument.
it's just every apparently, 60% of the people who would vote for Bernie all work in these impossible situations with these vindictive bosses who will, fire them and murder their children if they take the time to go vote. Right. I think that I personally believe that voting should have its own special day. It should be a holiday. People shouldn't have to go. It should be a day off from work. And, we go and we all do it in mass, and you have more polling stations, but voting is a state by state thing. And there are obviously people who benefit greatly from minimal participation, right? And they want to keep things as is, which is why we haven't seen a change, right? You look at some of the other countries, whether it's in Europe or whatever, it's a day off. The whole country goes and votes all at one time. You get the green thumb or whatever it may be. And you see, 70, 80, 90% voter participation in eligible voters. Here, it's in the 50s. It's been as low as in the 30s. We're barely getting half of our eligible voter population in there. And there are people who definitely benefit from that and want to keep it as it is.
I think we don't need to go on a limb and say who those people are. Right. Two things. I want to jump around on a bit and I apologize, but we talked about Kim Jong-un apparently being dead or possibly being dead. Now both South Korea and North Korea are saying that he's been sighted and is alive. And apparently for the first time since 2017, earlier today, North Korea and South Korea traded gunfire in the DMZ.
Yeah, I mean, not sure what's going on there. It's, any information coming out of North Korea, you take with a grain of salt. Like they're you know, they're a country that's ran by a dictator. It's been a dictatorship. That, I mean, we talked about it on the show. You know, the unique sort of situation that exists there. So I don't really trust any of the information or the media that's coming out of there. And we won't really know until he shows up somewhere at some point. And if he doesn't, then,
Right.
you know, I mean, who knows how long they'll go on with the charade if he's actually dead. I don't know. I don't have enough information. And unfortunately, I don't have deep contacts in North Korea to try to get some verification. So.
I know that skepticism is obviously the right way to go here. And I agree with you that there would definitely be motivations for what's left of North Korea's leadership to keep that under wraps, because again, they call him the whatever leader, you know, the grand leader,
Yeah.
whatever. But Trump came out and said that he's okay, and he's glad his friend Kim Jong-un is okay. And as I was reading that article, apparently after they started playing nice together, North Korea put Trump on a stamp.
Yeah, it's just really that part is just really sad to me. You know, again, we don't know, and even if we do know, I just don't think it's appropriate for Trump to confirm one way or another. I think it's just something that we as a country need to stay out of. What if he is dead? Right? What if Trump doesn't have the right information? He comes out, yeah, I was told that he's alive. It's all good and fine. And then, you know, a couple days later, they're having a funeral for him. You know, so now Trump has to backtrack. Well, when they told me he was alive, and you know, the whole, like, just again, he talks too much. He gets himself, he interjects himself. I mean, who knows if anyone even told him that, or if he thought it was a good idea, and somehow by him saying what he said, that would get him brownie points with North Korea, and then whenever Kim Jong-un is healthy, then they can resolve. Who knows what his thought process is there? But I mean, I think that's again another bad look. And again, with Trump, I just think he's a bad leader. I think he's bad for our country. I think he's bad not only for discourse, but just some of the decisions that he's made, the policies that he's put out. I really don't think that he's done a lot. And people will look at the stock market and say it's the greatest thing ever, and then tie it directly to the economy, which those are two different things. And yeah, the stock market has been good, made plenty of gains there, but I mean, it's not
and lost a lot back.
Yeah, I mean, and lost a lot. I mean, you know, like my pension 401k does not look great. You know, my stock portfolio is okay and probably looks better than some, but still, I mean, took a lot of loss. Like last week was a bad week. You know, I took a 15% loss last week, which is pretty tough. So I don't think that he's the right answer. I think he will tell you that he's the right answer no matter what. I mean, he came out last night and, you know, some random, one of his, you know, random followers tweeted that, you know, Trump is the best thing for has done more for black people than any president ever. Right. Someone put that on Twitter, right? Like allegedly one of his black followers. Okay. So Trump then comes out and basically says, thank you. I mean, Honest Abe was pretty good, but yeah, see, basically I told you. It's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Right? I mean, and it's just like when you point to it, you just say, what have you done? He'll point to, oh, look at the employment numbers and look at what I did. I did criminal justice reform. It's like, you didn't do criminal justice reform. Right? You didn't reform criminal justice. You made it so that things aren't quite as bad for criminals when they come out of jail, but you've done absolutely dick shit to stop them from going into jail. And in fact, you are encouraging police to round up more black people and send them to jail. So how the fuck have you reformed criminal reform, you dick?
So yeah, the sort of on a parallel to that, right now in the state of Michigan, I believe it's happening in Ohio as well, we're seeing lots of armed protests. And this is, I mean, in the times of social media, there are some kind of funny things coming out of it, but there's also some real undeniable facts about how people are treated based on race in this country. Because I've seen tons of memes that sort of showed if black people were out in droves outside of government building, waving assault rifles around, the treatment that they get from the police would be very different. And I think that's pretty hard to deny.
Yeah, I mean, but so yes, I think that things would be viewed differently. Obviously, that if Black Lives Matter decided to do what I thought and think that they should do, and I think when Black people protest, the problem is it's great that you've got a lot of people in matching T-shirts, with nice little nursery rhyme chants and all that other shit, but it's clearly not effective. It gets you attacked and criticized in the media, and no one really supports it, and no one really does much with what you're protesting, right? Like no one gives a shit about a protest anymore. People just get annoyed. But I think if you've got plenty of Black Second Amendment supporters out there that are also supporters of criminal justice reform and social justice. And I think if they actually took the approach that some of these white people are taking, like it's just like, oh, well, the police would treat it different. Would they? Because now the police are in a real, like, it's one thing, like, yeah, they'll pepper spray you and beat you down when you don't have a weapon, because what the fuck are you going to do? How are you going to fight back? Right? But now all of a sudden, if everybody shows up with the AR-15 ready to go, like now what are the police going to do? They really want to firefight with that many people? Like, yeah, they may have more firepower, but do you really want that to go down in the middle of a street? And if it does, then I don't know. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Because I don't think that, like, these police, listen. Most of these cops, right, except for, like, you've got a few that are veterans with severe PTSD, like that Brelo guy here in Cleveland who, like, lost his mind, in that car chase and
right, and jumped on the car and shot the.
Like, you've got guys like that, but for the most part, most of these cops, like, it's all good when they're fighting somebody who doesn't have a weapon, who can't fight back, who they've got numbers on and all that other shit. But now, when they're face to face in what would be a fair match, like all of a sudden those itchy trigger fingers get a hell of a lot more discipline when you're face to face with somebody who's got a red dot on your chest and you got one on theirs.
I think we're seeing a lot of that with this protest in Michigan, which is overwhelmingly white. I've watched multiple videos. I'm not sure I've seen anyone other than anyone that wasn't white on the militia protest side. But there's been some confrontations and lots of yelling in policemen's faces, and the police are remaining stoic,
right,
I guess.
Because
there's guns. I mean,
right, because there's guns. Like, I mean, and it's just like, all right, so if Black people get together, like you want to have a protest, like you're really pissed about something that happens, then show up in the same way. But instead, you don't need to yell at the police officer's face. Like, you can do without that. But if for every so many protesters, you have someone who's trained and armed and ready to go, I guarantee you these protests go a lot different. You see the police act and behave a hell of a lot different, with a hell of a lot more restraint, because now all of a sudden you risk something going down that no matter how racist you are, you don't want to happen, right? Because it's not even about protecting civilians. Now all of a sudden it's about you not getting a fucking round through your head.
I will say this: the Michigan protesters, I'm sure you would guess, I do not agree with. I think it's silly to carry an assault rifle if you're genuinely peacefully protesting. You can't fight a virus with an assault rifle. But at least in their defense, at least they didn't take a knee during the national anthem, because that's a bridge too far. Well, the sarcasm better have come through.
Yeah, I mean, the sarcasm comes through, but I mean, I think I don't want to get confused with someone who's saying that I support what happened in Michigan. I think that it was idiotic for them to protest. I think the idea of protesting because, like you can't go to the park or you can't do X, Y, and Z because, you can't get a haircut. Now, listen, I get that people are off work, people have lost jobs, and incomes have been completely disrupted. I understand that, and that is devastating. But all the protesting in the world doesn't bring the jobs back, right? And the fact of the matter is, we've got 60,000 people that have been killed by this virus, and the numbers are only going to continue to go up, right? Like, this is worse than the flu. It's exceeded flu deaths. We're seeing a greater impact I mean, like, is it 2 million people? No, those estimates were wildly overshot.
Well, those estimates were based on a model of if we do nothing.
Yes, I understand, but I mean, the reality is that we're not there. But still, 60,000 people is a lot of people. All right, that's still more people than the flu. That's still more people than
the Vietnam War.
Right, like I mean, like it's 60,000 people, that gets it up there in the top like 5 or 6 killers in the United States. Right, I mean, it's just like even gun violence. Right, if you think of the people that are killed by guns, you have.
So 30,000 a year, I think is pretty typically the number.
Well, I know the numbers. So
okay.
You have 40,000 in 2018. You had 40,000 people who killed themselves with a firearm, right? And then you had another 15,000 people who were killed by a firearm, not by themselves.
Not by themselves,
right?
Okay.
I mean, like, so I mean, you're approaching numbers that are like, these numbers are starting to exceed even the thing that that causes a big rift in this country, which is gun violence. Right, they're exceeding the gun violence numbers. It's exceeding influenza numbers. And if it keeps going at the pace that it's going, I mean, we could be talking about 100,000 people, 150,000 people before the end of the year, if it doesn't slow down. And you got places like Georgia and Florida, and I mean, New York is still having a rough time. I mean, if we see another 1,000 people, at the clip that we're seeing it right now, I mean, this thing is really serious, and so those protests are just idiotic, right?
What I put on this, my thought process is, for governors in, say, Michigan and Ohio, because we've got a Democrat and a Republican there, both of whom I think have been doing a very good job. I think they would love to say, okay, we're going to start loosening some restrictions, but we need people to use good common sense and use a new protocol in their daily lives. And idiots going around doing very poorly socially distanced protests with firearms and storming the
doesn't help.
Yes, right. Like we want to trust our citizenry to have common sense, and your response is, "That's my building. Here's my gun." Like fucking A.
Right. I mean, it's also just, and I think that maybe the Michigan governor, because I think people protested in Columbus, but it wasn't nearly as many. And I don't know if you have the same militia culture in Ohio as you do in Michigan. But I think DeWine has been a little bit better about this. Like in Ohio, I don't think we have, and I haven't. If there have been, I haven't seen it. But I haven't seen much of police arresting anyone in Ohio or issuing tickets for being for too many people in a park or something along those lines. Michigan has seen that. Like I've got my buddy, Mike, who lives up in Michigan, who, people in his neighborhood were issued a ticket because they were having a cookout in a public park. And I think the issue in Michigan is that it's more authoritative there than it is here, right? Like, I mean, they're literally saying, like, you can't be outside, you can't do X, Y, Z. As we sit here recording right now, there's people walking up and down the street. They give each other space when they pass. You can't, the parks are closed off here for the most part. But I don't think that there's no police station here in Ohio that we know of that's really taking the same approach as they are in some of these other places.
So I went to Lowe's the other day, and I've not put this on a Twitter, but kind of being a wise ass and kind of because it's one of the best options I have, my mask that I've been wearing is a neoprene Santa Muerta skull mask. And I ended up standing in line and recognizing the person in front of me as a bartender that used to take care of us all the time. And I yelled out her name, and she turns around, and I've got the skull mask on. She's like, "I didn't recognize you." Well, that's kind of the point of a mask, Mary.
Oh, man. The mask thing sucks because, I mean, no one likes wearing the mask. It's hard to breathe. It's hard to talk. It's just really an uncomfortable experience. And, there's a lot of people who are just so upset by it. Oh, I've got to wear a mask, and I can't go here and I can't go there. And it's just like, look, I don't have sympathy for you. I'm sorry. I don't. Your argument is stupid. Your need to basically, like, it's oppositional defiance. right? Like
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's just like, oh, what now? Oh, you're telling me I can't do this? Like all the people clamoring for gyms and salons to be open. It's just like, listen, Tammy, like when's the last time you've gone to a salon to do your hair? Your hair always looks like shit, right? You're just pissed because they're telling you can't go. You don't tell me about a gym. You're shaped like a fucking potato, right? Like if you even have a gym membership, you're just giving away money because you haven't fucking been. There's just so many people like that where it's just utterly ridiculous, and it's just like as soon as they lift all this shit, like all the people are going to dye their hair at home and just continue to watch Netflix and be fat. Okay.
And with this hamstring injury, that's something I've got to fight against. I just recently watched the series Waco, which I'm going to recommend. And the talk of government oppression and overreach, and the Netflix miniseries Waco highlights some of the major incidences of that, meaning Waco and Ruby Ridge. Have you watched it at all?
No, I mean I've watched documentaries on both. So I mean, who knows if it was the same one.
This is interesting. We didn't put that on the talking points list, so I don't want to derail us on that. But it's worth watching if you're looking for something. Saying that to you and to listeners.
Like, I don't know. I don't like those things happened. I've seen documentaries. They're pretty crazy scenarios, and you got to be careful of the cults and everything else. But I don't.
So, sort of still on the topic of militias, I don't have the guy's name in front of me. That's bad on me. Do you have the name of the kicker that New England drafted?
I thought you did.
I did the other day, and then I don't know. We tried to get going the other day and it didn't work. Anyway, you want to describe the situation? I'll come up with a name.
Yeah. So the New England Patriots drafted a kicker who has some questionable tattoos and some affiliations. The 3%ers and some other militia type groups, and with the Patriots drafting him, people immediately went to the Patriots draft a white supremacist, and there's a trying to make a parallel to the Patriots can draft a white supremacist, but Colin Kaepernick is not, still out of the league, and it's kind of once again it's a little bit of a nuanced thing. The guy is definitely a Trump supporter. He's definitely a MAGA supporter. And I think for a lot of people on the left and for a lot of Democrats, they go to, you can't, if you support Trump, you support white supremacy, period, right? And not saying that you are a white supremacist and you are a racist if you support Trump, but the idea is Trump doesn't push back against white supremacy. Trump doesn't push back against racism, nationalism, nihilism. He doesn't push back against any of those things. He encourages it. He tries to instigate it. And therefore, if you support his brand, that's a part of his brand. So that's what you support, even if you yourself don't affiliate with it, believe in it, think it's good, or what have you. So with that in mind, this kicker has the tattoo.
I've got the name, by the way. It is Justin Rohrwasser out of Marshall.
Okay, so Justin Rohrwasser out of Marshall has tattoos. 3%ers are a militia group that believes in small government. They have now digging into this group. There are members of the group, and they have wings and people that are affiliated with them that are definitely white supremacists to the max. The overarching group is they're anti-big government, and they're big on just let us do what we're doing within the bounds of the law. Government stay out of what I'm doing, right? Like whether it's taxes or more laws. Obviously, there are anti-gun laws, all that sort of stuff. But some of the members, some of the affiliations, some of the wings of their group definitely have white supremacist ties to them, and so you look at it, if and for a lot of people it's, well, if one member of your group is this, then that person represents the overall group. And that's where, again, we're talking about Black Lives Matter earlier. They had that issue where you had some really extreme ends of Black Lives Matter who wanted to kill the police and everything else. And so the entire group got labeled that. And then the Trump administration came in, took those snippets and said, well, this is a terrorist organization, right? And so that's what this 3%er group is dealing with. But with Trump being in the White House, he is not going to look at a group like this and give them that same designation, right? Like they're going to kind of snip off the ends that don't sound as good and be okay with them. And so that's kind of where you're at with this guy.
He's even tweeted, liberate Michigan, liberate Virginia. So he's, I would say, encouraging it. But this kid says he initially said he would cover the tattoo during games, and now he says he's going to have the tattoo removed. Maybe this isn't quite where you were going, but I do agree that that painting people with a broad brush, because like I'm thinking back of the whole OK symbol. Like there are people who do this who are not 3%ers, and so anyone who does that symbol can't be lumped in with that. And I have a friend who's a teacher in Western New York, and he said he's a soccer coach, and he's a girls' soccer coach, and apparently some of the girls on that team did that. And when he confronted them on it and said, why did you do this in a picture that was taken, of when you were in the uniform, they started bawling. He said one of the guys on the team said we should do this, and we went along with it. These were actually girls, but the guys were saying this is a cool thing to do. We didn't know anything about it, did it, and now we're being associated with white supremacists. And I don't consider that to be one of the greatest wrongs done to man over the last 10 seconds. But there are people who are doing dumb shit just to do dumb shit and don't pay attention to the broader reaching consequences. And this kid sounds like he got the tattoo. I think he said he got it when he was 16, which...
Well, no, hold on. I think he knows exactly who they are, and that doesn't line up because he didn't have the tattoo when he was a freshman at Marshall. And so unless he was a 16-year-old freshman at Marshall, which I do not believe that he was, he got it, in his formidable years. But I don't have an issue with him having the tattoo. The guy's a Trump supporter. He's a MAGA guy. Okay, fine. That doesn't necessarily make him a white supremacist. It makes him suspect, because there are people affiliated with the 3%ers that are white supremacists. There are people who support Trump that are white supremacists or Nazi supporters or what have you. I mean, the shit's been on display with at every one of these rallies for liberating a state. There's someone with the Nazi flag. There's someone with the Confederate flag. There have been people with, German sayings from Auschwitz or Dachau or whatever. So, the issue is that makes you suspect. Right? It's like you can be a Trump supporter, you can be MAGA, but understand that there are people affiliated with that movement who are these things. Right? And so there are certain people who are just going to lump you guys all in together. Is that fair? No, it's not. But life's not fair. Right? And you make choices, and for those choices, there are consequences. And so when you get that tattooed on your body with this group that's got questionable affiliations and members, then that is something that you then have to deal with. And this is what he has to deal with. I'm not going to bash them for picking them. I think, I believe that the Patriots did their due diligence. I also believe that the Patriots and Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick came in and said, you're not going to cover the tattoo. You're going to get it removed. You can afford to get it removed. And
tattoo removal is supposed to be gruesome, though.
I've got a friend who's going through it. It is incredibly painful. It takes a long time, and I don't necessarily know if it's working. But he's been at it for 3 months now, and it definitely is faded. But I mean, he's got a long way to go, and it's not cheap.
This was probably 20 years ago now, but one of my favorite tattoos ever. I was down in Florida, and there was a girl who had a dolphin jumping on her back shoulder, and she had clearly tried to get it removed, but clearly chickened out halfway through. So like she had a braided skin and then half of a dolphin sticking out of her back. Hey, a tattoo is a commitment. Removing a tattoo is a commitment. And if you're not going to go through with it because it hurts too much, think real hard about that next tattoo.
I mean, just find a good tattoo artist and get it covered. Like, That's what I tried to tell him, and he just, I don't know. My buddy is not, whatever. I don't know. My buddy is not, whatever. So anyway, just with the kicker, I'm not going to brand the guy a white supremacist because of these tattoos and because because of the social media. I mean, if he said something that just flat out is, racist or in support of white supremacy, then okay. And I haven't seen that, and I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying that it is there. But I'm saying that's the only way. Like, we can't just go and say, well, you like these sort of things, and these sort of things are affiliated with this, so therefore you must be this. I think that that's done too often, and that's not the way. I don't like. We have to try to move away from that. Do I look at this if I'm one of his teammates? Am I giving him a side eye? Absolutely, right? Like, you're gonna have to earn my trust, partner. Like, you're gonna earn it, right? Like, first of all, make fucking field goals, do your job. And oh, by the way, when you're not doing your job, you need to convince me that I don't need to kick your ass. Period. I think it's. I'm sure he will get the side eye, and I wouldn't wear a MAGA hat, and even though Brady did it, I wouldn't go wearing a MAGA hat in the Patriots locker room if you got a 3%er tattoo and you're a kicker, a rookie kicker at that. All right, so now I've got a bone to pick with you, my friend. What's up?
You deliberately opened a rabbit hole that you knew I would go running down.
Yeah.
With UFO sightings.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, you lit that fuse, and you knew that it would detonate.
Yeah, no, I knew exactly what I was doing, dropping a grenade down a well, and walking away. But I mean, listen, it's worth it. It's amazing that the whole UFO thing. So what happened was the Pentagon actually released footage. The Pentagon. Right. The Pentagon, the we don't release shit Pentagon, released footage of American fighter pilots in flying jets seeing unidentified flying objects, or as we're calling them, unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yeah, right.
And our U.S. fighter pilots, the best in the world, saying, "What the hell is that? That's not possible. The way it's moving. What are we looking at?" Right? And for them to release the footage, now who knows what it was? I don't know. And the fact that it's barely even registering on anyone's radar is absolutely amazing to me.
Well, so some of the videos, the most famous video I know of was taken by a guy named Commander David Fravor. And he was a guest on Rogan's podcast about a year ago, and I listened to the whole thing. And he was literally flying a jet, saw something that just, based on the physics of it, it was doing things that no craft that we have or know of can do in terms of speed and stopping on a dime and not having any heat signature. And now, some of the videos I saw were like, there was one guy who was I want to say he was in Cleveland. It was a guy in, I think, East Cleveland, and he's showing lights in the sky and showing them just disappear and saying, "What the fuck is that?" And it was. I mean, there were a bunch of those videos out there. I said, I think most of them were in Ohio and maybe Texas and maybe Michigan, but definitely one here.
Is that what was released from the Pentagon?
No. The Pentagon thing was the footage from
the other stuff I don't care about.
I do.
It's
happening now.
Okay, it's fine, but that's one thing for Jim Bob and Peter and everybody else to show video.
Me.
That's different because it's not coming from the Pentagon, right?
True. True.
That's completely different because I don't know what's going on with those other people, but I don't understand why the Pentagon released this, and that to me is a bigger story. We could sit here all day and go through YouTube and go on all these weird sites and forums and dig down the rabbit hole, but that all gets punted when the Pentagon is saying, "Hey, weird shit, we don't know what's going on. Check this out." Right? That's what I want to get to the bottom of. Why did they release it? What do they know on top of what they released? What is this?
It is the Fravor video. And what's funny about the Fravor video is when I heard him interviewed, he would admit that when he was a pilot, there's a chunk, most of his time was spent off of Southern California. and he would admit that he would occasionally put his jet on night vision and then buzz over the top of this forest that people camp in but aren't supposed to, and just fuck with people. And he said literally they would like keep track of how many UFO calls got done by them on purpose. And when Joe Rogan said, you really think there's a smart ass out there who did that? He goes, I am one smart ass out there who did that, and there are others. So,
okay, so
that's an unidentified flying object report that was actually a military jet that were just fucking with people, which I think is kind of funny.
Okay, but again, that's great.
It's not released by the Pentagon. I
don't give a fuck about that though. I give a fuck about the fucking federal government releasing footage of some shit they don't understand what it is. Like that's the part that, like that's the big thing. Like the rest of it now doesn't fucking matter because the whole thing was, does our government know? What do they know? Are they hiding shit from us? And now
we know they hide shit from us. Anyway, so your plan worked, and the videos out there are really fucking weird, and some of them were around here going on during the quarantine. And if I lay on my couch with my wounded hamstring, maybe I'll try to find some of them and tweet them out. From my account. All right. Now we got to talk about your boy, Alex Jones.
Definitely not mine. But it came up. It was all over the place, and it was a little bit disturbing. It was very, very humorous, but just the actually, and he looked pretty good. Actually, I will say.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
he must be getting his colloidal silver and his blueberry extract or whatever he does.
Absolutely, but
he didn't look like the old fat slob who just spray tanned himself and said, "Look at what this supplement did for me." What, spray tanned you?
Yeah. No, I mean he's talking about eating his neighbors and eating people's asses. Which, I mean, I will contend that I think if you've got a neighbor willing to eat your ass, you live in a pretty good neighborhood. You know, a good rim job is never a bad thing. But, I mean, it just like, I think the only way we can do it, we just got to, show.
I'll admit it. I will eat my neighbors. I'm not letting my kids die. I'm just going to be honest. My superpower is being honest. I've extrapolated this out. And I won't have to for a few years since I got food and stuff. But I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them and chop them up. And you know what? I'm ready. My daughters aren't starving to death. I'll eat my neighbors. See, my superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will. I'm combat model, optimum self-sufficiency, probably the leader. The point is have you thought about that yet? Because I'm somebody that thought I could fix this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up my neighbor, how I'm going to haul him up by a chain and chop his ass up? I'll do it. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first.
That's Alex Jones being Alex Jones. Not really, I mean, if you know him or know of him, it's not really a surprise, but I still think that, I mean, it's amazing to see and listen to.
And his choice of words, how does he not know that? And maybe he does, but.
It doesn't care. I don't know. But I mean, I've watched it a million times. It doesn't get less funny to me. And he's been completely deplatformed, which I kind of don't think is necessarily fair. But at the same time, I have no sympathy for him because of what he did to the parents at Sandy Hook, telling them that their kids, that everything was a lie and it was fake and that their kids weren't murdered and that it was a, giant.
Crisis actors.
Yeah, all that other stuff. I have no sympathy for him for that. But, it's still, I still think that I do have some questions about him being deplatformed the way that he was. But you know what? YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, these are all private companies, and that's the part that people forget. So until the government is able to put them in a position where those are public utilities, which I think will be virtually impossible to do, then they're going to have the right to boot people off. So sorry, Alex Jones, you lose your voice. All you have is your website, but keep it, because as long as you're going to tell people to keep eating ass and threatening to eat your neighbors.
Yeah. So the funny part to me is he's Mr. Prepper, whatever, right? So he even says in his whole thing that if it comes to it, he's going to be fine for a couple years because he's got all this Alex Jones brand 5-gallon bucket of spaghetti that'll withstand a zombie apocalypse. But just in case that's all gone, I'm going to feed my kids by gutting my neighbors and then using the term, "I'll eat your ass."
Yeah, I also like, and he asked the question like, well, are you thinking about this? Like, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, why are you thinking about it? Costco is still fucking open. Right? Like, I mean, Costco is
booming.
Walmart, right? Like, I mean, like, there's, and I know there's a lot of reports about disruptions in the supply chain, issues with meat factories and but there are things that.
I found a few temp agents.
Sorry, my voice recognition on my phone. Something I said tripped my voice recognition on my phone.
Okay. I mean,
Hopefully it wasn't "I'll eat your ass," because if it was, I'm going to get a.
Well, I'm surprised my phone didn't go off.
My Google search is going to be pretty interesting.
So, I mean, there are concerns about the supply chain, and we do have some concerns about meat, and we do need to keep an eye on that. I have to admit that I have stocked up on a lot of meat, but I also like to smoke meat every weekend. I'm actually doing it right now. So we're going to have to go shortly. But,
okay.
yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't really think we need to start thinking about, which of our neighbors are going to eat, but keep an eye on it. I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe
there's some. All right, if you got meat to take care of, you ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, we got some pulled pork, we got some ribs. Actually need to run to the store, get some pickles and coleslaw. But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up, and you can tell people where to find us.
At Whiskey Congress on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Jim at whiskeycongress.com. If you want to email me, Steve at whiskeycongress.com. If you want to email him. So I'm trying to look up my new separate Twitter handle for.
Jim, we'll get him in there. That's awkward radio.
All right, it is.
But anyway, all good, and thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys soon.
We're out. Thank you.